How do we know what we know about homelessness?
Yeah, that's a fabulous question that doesn't get asked enough. So I'm so glad to see it in there. Um, really interesting. Up until the 1980s, but really 1990s, there wasn't a lot of research at all about homelessness. There was some about that would use the words vagrants or maybe hobo, but it wasn't. We didn't really know much about homelessness. And so then when homelessness emerged as this crisis, as this like I hesitate now to use the word epidemic that I used to not think about twice about a year and a half ago using that word. But when we saw this enormous swell in the number of people experiencing homelessness across, for example, the global north, that's when we started to see in the 1990s more and more research coming out about homelessness. And because it was relatively sudden and a relatively new phenomenon, a lot of that research in the early 90s was about like, who is experiencing, like, who are these folks? Who's experiencing homelessness? What's happening that we have all these people all of a sudden experiencing homelessness? And so while that was important at the time, because it was really just folks trying to wrap their heads around, oh my goodness, what's going on? What it did, I argue, is it created the conditions where a lot of the research for a long time was really focused on those individual questions. Okay, what happened to this person? What's this person doing that they've experienced homelessness? And so it took quite a bit of time for the research to catch up, I think. But over the last 20 years, we've seen more and more research now that's really looking at the root causes of this experience of homelessness. So it's looking at those structural and systemic issues that are explaining the huge crisis we have in homelessness today. The other thing that we know about homelessness is from what we can call point in time counts. And so that is when cities across Canada and North America do in one day, they count all the people they can experiencing homelessness in their city. And so then they get a number of, okay, this is how many people we think, and they try to capture not just people in their shelters, but they try to capture people who might not normally access services. So people who maybe are couch surfing or are on the street or in an encampment. And they try to get that number, okay, how many people in our city are experiencing homelessness? And they use that number to inform their policies and practices and funding and where they're going to invest their money. And pit counts have been very important because up until not even 10 years ago, we weren't doing this. And so we didn't have a consistent number to be able to see, is homelessness growing in a given city? Is it reducing? We just couldn't count it. And so it's been incredibly valuable information to have to inform our way forward. But at the same time, that PIT data doesn't count some really important people experiencing homelessness. Again, that provisionally accommodated or at risk of homelessness that I spoke about earlier. And we know that certain populations are less likely to be counted than others. So specifically Indigenous people who might not feel comfortable or be welcome in Western services, women, the LGBTQ2S plus community, youth. So we have to be really careful. That PIT count data is very valuable, but we have to make sure we don't assume that it is the answer and it encompasses the whole picture.